What if the strength of a civilization depended on something as ordinary as dinner around the family table? We spend a great deal of time in our world today worrying about our schools and politics and technology, but what if the first institution that shapes every other institution is the family? Today, we're joined by Laura Kraus of the Family Digital Foundation to explore why healthy families remain the foundation of a flourishing society and how we can strengthen these foundational home habits in the midst of an increasingly distracted world. Join us for this episode of BaseCamp Live.
Mountains. We all face them as we seek to influence the next generation. Get equipped to conquer the challenges, summit the peak, and shape exceptionally thoughtful, compassionate, and flourishing human beings. We call it Ancient Future Education for raising the next generation. Welcome to BaseCamp Live. Now your host, Davies Owens.
Welcome to another episode of BaseCamp Live. Davies Owens, your host here with you on the journey, raising up the next generation. A lot of things are exciting and happening in the world of BaseCamp Live. I keep talking about this amazing milestone of 10 years being a part of the podcast. Many of you have been with us on that journey for many, many years. And I'm continuing to think about ways not only to celebrate as we go into the fall, but just some opportunities for reformatting and updating a bit of the BaseCamp Live experience. And I would love to have some of your input. We may do a formal survey at some point, but for now, if you've got ideas on things you would love to have in this podcast, not only topically, but in terms of even format. You know, when we started Zipcast, by the way, a couple of years ago, we had a segment called Because You Ask. And it was a really wonderful, simple way for you to ask questions. And then I would turn around on a 2-minute Zipcast segment and answer those questions. We can certainly do something like that with BaseCamp and more of our long form format that we have here. So reach out to me, info@basecamplive.com. Always good to hear from you. As always, a big shout out to many of our listeners who are part of the BaseCamp Live and Zipcast family. The Right Reverend Dr. John Bonesier. He's head of school at the St. Timothy School, where I had the privilege there in Dallas of visiting a couple years ago and getting to be a keynote speaker at a parenting event, got a chance to spend time with teachers, even board members and students. It's a blessing to get onto your campus. I am definitely wanting to be out as much as I can. Schedules are filling up fast for the fall and even into next winter and spring. You can learn more about all of those opportunities on the BaseCamp Live website. Also, a big shout out to Valerie Brado, headmaster at the Oakdale Academy there in Waterford, Michigan. Valerie, thanks for being a part of this great community that we have, even though we don't all get to spend time together, although we've done a little bit of that this summer for those of you who've been at conferences. You're part of a very important movement that's spreading all around our country today. And what I love here in this podcast is the opportunity to talk about things that are happening in the culture and what's happening in the world of parenting and in education, especially around the growing classical Christian school movement. Our guest today, Laura Kraus, is the founder and CEO of the Family Digital Foundation, which is building a new model for helping families thrive in a technological age. Her work starts from the belief that the family is our first institution and that technology should strengthen family relationships rather than compete with them when done in the right ways. Before she founded Family Digital, Laura worked as an international news producer and media consultant, spending extensive time in China covering Capitol Hill and the White House for the Christian Broadcasting Network. She studied East Asian Studies at Princeton University and even earned a master's degree in communication, culture, and technology from Georgetown University. Her writing has ranged from news and advertising to children's books, cartoons, and essays on family life, which, by the way, many of those essays that she has as a part of the Family Digital Foundation work are available. And I encourage you to take a look at them. Our talk today is based on one of those articles of many that she's written. The details are in the show notes. Laura lives in Virginia Beach with her husband, Peter, who is a good friend of mine and also a co-founder of Zipcast, along with their 3 teenage children. Before we jump into this interview and conversation with Laura, as always, a huge thank you to those sponsors who come alongside each episode. In this particular episode, a big thank you to Robert Littlejohn and Chuck Evans and their book, Wisdom and Eloquence for Parents, as well as our friends at the Wise Phone. There are details on the BaseCamp Live website about this great alternative to a smartphone, and yet you can still have a lot of the functionality to do the work that you have to do. It's really a tool. Also in this episode, a big shout out and thanks to Life Architects Coaching and Tammy Peterson and our friends at the Herzog Foundation. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Laura Kraus. Laura, welcome to BaseCamp Live.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's a joy to have you on. It's really been a blessing to, of course, work with your husband, Peter, and be in this important work that we do at Zipcast. And part of that is trying to figure out how do we address the modern moment that we're in. And I love the fact that you have a great life journey. You're a mom. You've done a lot in the world of media, communications, and now this important work with the Family Digital Foundation. Tell me a little bit of your journey, because I think people will be fascinated.
Well, the idea for Family Digital Foundation kind of happened before I had any children. I was probably 2007, 2008. So kind of before the smartphones really took off. I was in China working as a journalist on a story on internet addiction. And you see what can happen when people have, unchecked access to, media, screens, everything, all the bad stuff. But at the same time, I'm in China and then I'm able to use technology. I think it was Skype at the time, to FaceTime or to talk face to face with my husband who's in a different continent. So the problem isn't really technology. It's because in a way we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're more connected, but often we feel more alone. So
Right.
How can we use technology to bring people together to help them feel more connected rather than feel completely isolated? And then that idea kind of evolved to the family unit. My husband was actually in London looking at a family walking in Hyde Park, two parents, two kids, doing some kind of really wholesome activity, and just thinking of, where are we going to feel the most connected, the most together? It is usually in our first unit of existence within the family context. And so that idea kind of has evolved into where we are today, which is still the same premise of using technology to bring families together and to strengthen them.
Well, and this idea of the family, I think anybody listening at face value would say, yeah, the family is sort of the center of everything. And yet the reality is, we'll get into of how modern people actually live out their lives. Family is kind of low on the list in terms of time priorities. I know in the article that we'll have links to, that really appreciate your bringing this idea of the family as the first institution. You say that, we treat family as personal and private today, but for most of history, it was the center of everything that was public. Talk about the role of the family historically.
Well, historically, that's where, society, civilization is comprised of individual family units. So it's really the little cells that make up the whole body. If the cells are healthy, if you have a strong family structure, if it's a place where people feel cared for, that their needs are met, that they're feeling safe and secure and loved, and also just a sense of, legacy, that it's not just the ephemeral things of here and now, but what they're doing is making an impact later, then society, is going to be healthier as a result. Without healthy families, you're not going to have a healthy society.
Yeah. And boy, we can see sort of the breakdown of family and marriages. And there's so much we know that's the case, but the severity of it and the linking, as you say in the article, this link between a strong family, stable communities, and resilient society. We're literally talking about the future of our civilization here. This is a major epicenter point, is the family. That, again, I think we kind of know it generically, but again, help us understand why this is such a problem today.
Well, I think today, with just the hyper-personalization of technology, it's not even something that we are cognizant of a lot of the times. Like, most of us are not going to let some stranger come into our house and talk to our kids. And yet every day when we're letting our kids, watch YouTube or, TikTok or whatever, there you are. You have, you're exposing your children to so many things that you would not want to normally. But I think so many parents today, we're tired. It's a lot. You have so many responsibilities within, your jobs, your communities, even just managing the house and taking kids from activity to activity. A lot of times we, as adults, are guilty of outsourcing parenting to these devices, and we don't even realize that it's happening. And I think even things there's, nothing wrong with technology. It's kind of agnostic. It can be used for good. It can be used for harm. But when we're all in these hyper-personalized algorithms that are so targeted to exactly what you want. It's a very selfish way to live. My own algorithm for social media, when you started out, you see your, friends' children or what different people from high school are doing years later. It is more social. Now my algorithm is so narcissistic. It's all about me, what they think I'm going to buy. I have even stumbled across this like corner of the internet for redheaded females who are taller than 5'9", which is, I mean, there are not that many in the world. And yet like they've found me, and there's nothing, nothing inherently wrong with that. But the more time we're spending on these individual devices, the less time we're spending actually communicating and interacting with people in the real world.
Right. And all the evidence is there and we'll talk even more about, tech in and of itself, the addictive impact of it. I mean, it's like crack cocaine for certain people in terms of what it's doing and how it's drawing us in. But you're talking about just this idea of the family, starting to do more outsourcing. And so we see that again against history where, children spend so little time really in the scheme of their lifetime under the roofs of their homes with their families. And I think the stat I've seen at some point is around 75% of the time that you'll spend with your child over the course of their entire life is come and gone by the age of 12. And because they start becoming more independent, and then eventually they move out, and then, all of a sudden you see your child, occasionally because they live in a different town. And so that influence window is so small, and that outsourcing is becoming more and more common. So what are some of the other, just again, disconnects that you see a lot of parents intending well, but kind of sliding into this outsourcing or abdication even unintentionally?
I think, technology is one. I think, parents are on their own screens, the kids are on their own screens, and just everyone is doing their own thing. I think also there is, again, like none of this is necessarily bad, but activities are so much more programmed than they were 20, 30 years ago. I thought one of the pandemic and was not fun overall, but there was something really wonderful about being forced to say no, like you couldn't do any activities even if you wanted to. And then, in my neighborhood, you see all the families that are going on walks together or riding bikes. And there was almost this nice little retro flashback to the way family life used to be. Like kids are outside playing in the yard, rather than just having to go from soccer practice to ballet to this and that. And there's this, it's more almost institutional and rather than just learning the basic foundational principles within just your family. And not that there's nothing wrong with activities or technology, but where are you spending most of the time? And even kids' activities can be a really selfish thing too, because the whole family's life should not revolve around the soccer tournaments or field hockey or whatever it is.
And is your assessment probably at core, just because we're all the fallen humans that we are, that a lot of that is this sort of parent guilt, a sense of FOMO, a sense of I've got to do more so I can prove to everybody I'm a good parent? Is that really, if you peel the layer back, is that kind of what the core, insecurity or fear is? It's driving us into these unhealthy parent, or I should say family moments.
I think so, yes, because you don't, there's almost this badge of honor when you say that you're busy, which should not be the case. We need to take a break. We are not designed to be going from A to B to C. I think there is a lot of fear. It's so strange looking at our oldest is a senior in high school, and just within the college system, you have some universities that have these extraordinarily low acceptance rates that you could be perfect and never get into any of them. And then there are so many on the other side where they don't even have enough students and they don't have a financially stable system to even survive. And so it's this strange dynamic now, but I think there's this fear if you're not doing all of the things all of the time, you're not going to get into a good college, and then you're not going to be able to live a happy, successful life, which is absolutely nonsense.
Yeah, and those sort of unspoken or maybe even spoken rules of the modern world really do dominate us. And so we end up in these these moments that we don't really want, but it's true where families, I know in your article you talk about fewer than half of families even share dinners together on most nights. So things that would have been very normative in the ebb and flow of of family life are just not there because of these external pressure points. It
Yes.
seems that, yes. I mean, yeah, talk about that, because I think, again, it's the water we breathe, or the water we swim in, the air we breathe. It seems normative, but it's not historically normative. And I think that's the main point here, is that we're trying to recapture something that we've lost.
Right. But I think it is also interesting. I mean, just throughout history, while families have been this protective unit, what a traditional family looked like has not been the same. And you have, even within the last 100 years in World War II, you have, the dads are off at war, the moms are working and taking care of everything at the home front. But the kids are still feeling, cared for and feeling that sense of, we look at it, Family Digital, the family health in terms of 3 areas: boundaries, which are kind of your norms, the behaviors, the way that you act, sense of right and wrong. And every family's boundaries are going to look a little bit different. There isn't one appropriate boundary and one not. There is a sense of structure. Bonds, which are kind of just love, just the shared attention, knowing that you matter, that you belong, that you are part of something that's greater than yourself. And then also legacy, like living for the here, or not, living for the here and now, but also what kind of legacy are you leaving behind?
Yeah.
Looking towards the future and the impact that you have later. So those 3 things are still intact in that, dynamic. And then 10 years later, from the 40s, you got the 50s, where, many of the women have the stereotypical Donna Reed, perfect homemaker, you're taking care of all of those types of things, while the dads are, working their 9-to-5 job without any overtime or calls or emails coming in at all hours of the time. But the structure is there too. So I think, families are going to look a little bit different in terms of just technology will change things. Society is going to change things. But as long as you have that core intact, you can still, the successful family will lead to successful civilization.
I like the idea of this framework, because, again, for so many families, estranged even from extended family, we have a loss of generational wisdom today. So a lot of families are just adrift, saying, I don't even know what normal is supposed to be anymore, parenting by YouTube. And so the idea of a framework of the boundaries and the bonds and the legacy makes a lot of sense. And I want to take a break and come back and unpack that a little bit more. And I'm also be really interested. I know you also cite this 8 decade long longitudinal research from Harvard on just the importance of close family relationships. So there is a lot here that we can rediscover. And I really look forward to continuing the conversation right after the break. During this short break, I have a special invitation to all school leaders, administrators, and teachers. I want you to imagine for a moment stepping away from your everyday routine at school and diving deep into the rich foundations of Christian education, surrounded by world-class scholars, seasoned classroom teachers, and administrative experts with years of experience running schools with a lot of wisdom to share. That's exactly what the Herzog Foundation's Institute is offering. I've had the joy of serving as a training coach for the last few years, leading their 2.5-day training on spiritual formation and another one on parent engagement. They offer close to 50 unique training events ranging from board governance to marketing to classroom best practices. They even offer a training on how to teach the great books. And the best part of all, well, thanks to the generosity of the Herzog Foundation, these training events, including lodging, are completely free for Christian educators. Institutes are located around the country in beautiful locations, including at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and the Reagan Library in Santa Barbara. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Check out the details at theherzogfoundation.com.
Every school year tells a story, but the quieter pages often go unread. A science experiment that sparks wonder, a teacher guiding perseverance, moments parents long to hear. Zipcast brings those stories to light. Each 10 to 12-minute episode blends local updates from your school with wisdom from national parenting and education experts that addresses the questions parents long to have answered. Nearly 100 schools are using Zipcast this year, and fall or winter can be the perfect time to begin. Learn more at zipcast.media. Zipcast, encouraging you on the go with what you need to know.
Laura, one of the things that makes the idea of rediscovering something so encouraging is that we're not guessing. We know that for most of human history, there have family has been the institution that has been at the epicenter. And so I know C.S. Lewis famously said, we've lost our way. The fastest way home is to turn and go back from the direction from which we've come. So you're really saying, we don't have to make stuff up, people. It's all there. And you mentioned in your article this 8-decade-long longitudinal research from Harvard. Talk about that, because that's pretty remarkable, of 8 decades of research.
Yes, and they found that the greatest indicator of happiness was to have strong family relationships. And you can tell, like my mother used to say, like, as you get older, you either get bitter or better. So you can be bitter vinegar, or you could be a fine wine. And what makes you fine wine? It's those relationships, it's those friendships, even beyond the family. But how are you making people feel? But within that family structure, they're the people that are there. They have your back. And that's what helps you go the distance.
So is the idea of this study looking like over 8 generations or multi-generational to see the way that kind of health and happiness of one generation bled into the next? Is that what was sort of the what was the project they were trying to show with that many decades?
I think, it was just the continuity of the family, and also just different factors in terms of why some people are thriving and others are not. And the relationships were just the key, or that link that helped people throughout the different decades. But I think having that just the years of study, it's not just, a couple of years where things can ebb and flow. Because I think if you talk to people earlier, sometimes families can also create a lot of stress.
Sure.
And they are not always healthy. And sometimes they can make us the craziest of anything else. But when you look at the whole, several decades and the overall trends, families are what make us who we are, and also ultimately lead to the greatest sense of satisfaction and accomplishment.
Sure.
When you go to the nursing home, I remember a grandfather saying nobody was talking about the kinds of, and he was with a lot of like high individuals. No one was talking about what they did in the business world. But what did they want to talk about? They wanted to talk about their grandkids and what they were doing, and just those personal things, the things that really mattered to them. It wasn't what they were, it was who they were. Right.
And there's the idea of generational curses and generational blessings. And you can think back multi-generations back, if this particular, brokenness happened, that it may still be felt generations later, because that wounded that parent who wounded that child, that kind of thing. And then we've also got the blessings of strong families. So it's never too late. And I know a lot of what we're going to get into is even more this practical. Okay, so regardless of what kind of family we came from, we can set a new trajectory for multi-generations going forward by prioritizing our families. And again, moving from just saying that we believe that, but then the reality is our kids are signed up in 5 sports and we're all coming in at 10 o'clock at night with fast food in our lap. There's got to be better ways to live, and you help articulate a good bit of that. Before we get into some of this practicals, just other kind of observations. You talked about the framework before the break on boundaries and bonds and legacy, and just the importance of having we call it kind of forming architecture, like literally we're building something here. We need to kind of think proactively about it.
Yes. But before that, one thing, just thinking about family stressors, because I think a lot of us do come from families that were not the best examples and that were not ideal or what we would want. I think it's so interesting that just in the human body, how do our muscles get stronger? They get stronger by lifting heavy things that actually break down our muscle fibers. And then as a result, they can heal. And then, progressively, the progressive overload, they can become stronger and stronger. And I think one thing that is really encouraging is, while I had a great family legacy myself, but it's really encouraging to see that people often who have the strongest families going forward are those who did not have great families of origin. And yet they have been able to really, I think they understand how important it is because they never had it themselves. And often they're the ones who really invest in their families, invest in the future generations, and see these beautiful, flourishing families as a result. So whatever your background is, it doesn't have to impact where you're going. We can all start and we can all strengthen our families wherever we are.
That's a great reminder. And I think we certainly see that. And I mean, we all have our stories of that where we're kind of, because of the brokenness, we're reacting more strongly in a positive direction to set this new trajectory. So the home is certainly uniquely situated to be this place to shape identity and character and belonging. Let's talk a bit about just, what are some of those practical things? You've got families listening that saying, yeah, Laura, we agree. We think this is where we want to. We know time is short. Days are numbered here with our kids young and in the home. And we really want to continue to redeem the time. So what are some things that you would point to just to guide and encourage parents to redeem the time?
Well, I think, be confident in saying no when you need to, which is much easier said than done. But, it's one thing if you can, do the activities that you really want. But I think when you get to those activities that you're just doing things for the sake of doing them or because your neighbors are doing them or you think it's going to help you with your future later, like, why? No, don't. The most important thing you can do to help with your future later is to develop the character of your children. And you can develop great character through sports and activities. These are not mutually exclusive, but make sure that you are really investing in their growth and development as individuals, because, in 20 years, your kids will probably not be playing competitive soccer. Maybe they will, but they will be, working with other people. They'll be engaging in society. And so where do you want to spend most of your effort in terms of cultivating your children? It's with their character. So shared activities, I think now it's because there's so much personalized entertainment. It's easy if for everyone to go off and do their own thing separately. But I think the more we force the family togetherness, even with the friction and the fighting and all of the things that family life can entail, we need to it's a good way to refine us all as individuals and develop character and teach us how to, interact, work well with others and live well within the outside world.
So there's some specific kind of family activities that you would point to. I mean, you mentioned during COVID, sort of the rediscovery of family walks. And as you were saying that, I remember a stat back then, I think Monopoly, there were more Monopoly games sold, that year than in the last 50 years or something. People were sort of rediscovering board games. Are there some just, go-to suggestions as you think about families that are trying to make this move back towards re-entrenching to the family and finding time together despite some of the challenges and logistics? And what are some best practices that you would point to?
I don't know. I think every family is so different. And so to tailor, I think just know your kids, know yourself, what interests you, and pick things that go with what your family likes to do. My family recently, my kids have all gotten into singing karaoke, and that's just a fun thing that you can do. But another family might absolutely hate that. Dance parties, board games, which can bring out the best and the worst in your family members. Even something like watching a family movie together and talking about it afterwards. The little question games. Even it doesn't even have to be something big. Just having dinner together as a family can be so huge. And even doing something at the end of your meal, like a high, low, or a buffalo. So something great that happened that day, something bad, and something kind of funny or unusual. Or then there's the rose, thorn, bud. So something you are looking forward to, something that was great, and something that was not so great. But just talking and having those conversations can go a long way towards fostering togetherness.
I love that idea. It's really just creating what's the habits, the norms of your family, and if you're a family that can actually sit together at a table. My sister's been a fourth grade teacher for 2 decades now, and she talks often about just sort of this very obvious change in the last 5 years, probably related to COVID, where just because children don't often sit at family meals, just the simple habit of sitting in your desk during a classroom period is very difficult. So the habits that you're forming, as you're describing, playing a game together, are actually, there's all kinds of residual benefits in terms of providing opportunity for conversations and just the learning of patience and human interaction. That's, again, such a unfortunately so rare today.
Yeah, sometimes when I come home and my house is not clean, I try to be thankful because my kids were playing, they were doing something, they were interacting together. They weren't just sitting in their rooms on devices like zombies. Like, this is okay. This is a good problem to have. But I think it's also important to be comfortable with mess when it comes to families. Like, sometimes your kids are going to say things that you don't want to hear, or you're going to, I mean, there will be, the more you interact with people, the more they're probably going to annoy you, and there will be friction, but those are often the seeds of really strong connections that last for generations.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's, doing life together is messy, but it's that, to your point, when as you get older and you look back on your life, you think that is the thing that really mattered the most. And so how do we protect those times? And let's take one more break, and I want to come back. You've written a whole group of essays that I want to just make sure people are aware of. The one we're talking about, The First Institution, is really the first in this series of, is it 11 essays? Is that right, that you've already written?
I think, yes, about 11 on the architecture.
And you are an amazingly gifted writer, I will say. I mean, I love reading what you have written, and I know people will benefit from it. But let's take a break and come back. I want you to share a little bit more of some of the work you're doing here with Family Digital that would be a blessing to folks. We'll be right back after the break.
Hi there, classical Christian parents, students, and teachers. This is Robert Littlejohn, co-author with Charles Evans of Wisdom and Eloquence, a Christian paradigm for classical learning, published by Crossway Books. We want you to know about our new book with well-known family counselor Keith McCurdy, published by Classical Academic Press. The book is titled Wisdom and Eloquence for Parents: How Classical Christian Education Can Transform Your Children, Your Family, and the World. We have written this shorter, parent-focused book specifically as an admissions and parent education resource for schools and families. We are excited to be proud sponsors of Zipcast and BaseCamp Live, and we hope you are enjoying these two great resources for classical learning as much as we are. And we would invite you to visit our website, wisdomandeloquence.org, to explore the various services offered by the authors of Wisdom and Eloquence for Parents, and to let us know how we can best serve you. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Laura, this is a huge topic, the idea of rediscovering the importance of the family as the first institution, which is really the title of this series that you've written, these essays. Share with people a bit more of just kind of your ministry, your work, your calling right now to awaken families to all that they can possibly be. And this is again, part of a long series of articles that I'd love you to talk about and people to discover.
Sure. I mean, the basic architectural of renewal is kind of it's like our philosophical foundation for the Family Digital Foundation. And essentially, we believe that families are such an important institution that's integral to society. And right now that we are just inundated with so many things that are competing for our time, our attention, our resources. And so we need to get back to focusing on the family as foundational, and not just for ourselves and our own sense of happiness, but also just for society and civilization as a whole. And I think we've seen just the effects of this recently. Like, our society right now, like, we're not very nice to each other. We're not playing well with each other. Just the basic things that you should be learning at your home before you hit kindergarten.
Right.
Because people aren't doing that. They're, outsourcing their parenting and other things to everything else. But by making that integral, by focusing on the family unit, the impact for society is you can't even measure it. It's astronomical.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea, to kind of the dotted line between having dinner with your young grammar school children, let's say, and the dot that goes all the way to that child now as an adult leading a company, knowing how to just have civil conversation and to be patient and how to, work through conflict. I mean, this idea of like most of the things you're going to need in life, you kind of learn before kindergarten and your home. I mean, these are such transferable skills, to your point, that aren't always happening. So we've got to re-entrench those early days of formation. Mm-hmm. So in this series of these 11 essays, I mean, you're kind of on that. Is that basically the story arc for you is working through from the first institution to just how does renewal happen?
Yes. I mean, that's when our premise is, I mean, it's not that complicated, by renewing the family, we're renewing society as a whole. And I think, one of the things that we want to do with Family Digital is to build the right type of technology that does encourage the renewal. That's not just extra noise in the sea of your feed that never ends, but just a little oasis in the desert in a way. We're not going to get away from technology. Some people do get away from technology, and that is fine. But so many of us, it's so important to everything that we do all the time. So why not design technology that is serving the family, that is strengthening the family, rather than just trying to monetize the attention of individuals?
Well, and this is a really critical point, which is it's to your, I think especially if your children are younger, it's easier to just go full Luddite and say, it's all of the devil. We don't want anything to do with any of it. And there's a place for that. We need to isolate off. But there's also the challenge of being in the world, but not of it. We are in a technical world, and, Lord knows what the next 5 years is going to hold. We've got, robots in our homes and, agentic AI everywhere we turn. It's getting hard to even figure out how do you navigate this. So we have to figure out how to create, frameworks, to use the word we used earlier, that will allow us to wisely navigate the technical world that we all have to live in. So those balancing acts are a lot of what you're working on with Family Digital. And there's a lot more we can talk about, but just share, some of those ideas that you have around, we do want to be using technology, but we need to use it wisely. What is Family Digital doing to help in that balance?
Well, we have our two guiding principles. One is digital sovereignty. So basically you own your own data. We're not monetizing attention. Everything that you put within the system it's yours. You own it. You can control how it's used. You might want to just keep it in your family cocoon, so you can do things like save, family memories or recipes or traditions or things like that don't necessarily need to go elsewhere. Or it could be something that you do want to share in a safe environment. So you might want to have a way to communicate with, a trusted institution like a school or healthcare provider or something like that. So you're in control. No one else is going to take that from you. But also, pretty much every major platform is looking at you as an individual. What do you want? What should the algorithm serve you? My social media feed is going to be very different than my child's, or my husband would not be on social media, but they're very tailored to you and what they think is going to capture your attention and capture your dollars and capture your soul in a way.
Right.
Whereas we are looking at the family as a unit. So it's kind of like, rather than, letting your child just run out into traffic, it's like the little car, the vehicle that the entire family can be in together. So you can move where you want to, but there is a sense of accountability and security within that. One of our first features is, and we have, if people choose to use it, and they don't have to, but you can chat with, an AI assistant, either individually, like you might with Claude or ChatGPT, but also you could have a chat with your family and the agent. So if you want something like a reminder on, somebody's birthday coming up and the gift list, or you're planning a trip and you want a little extra assistance there, you can opt into that feature as well. But you're not just sending your kid off to chat with a robot that could tell them whatever you don't want them to know. There is control, and even the model that we use can be tailored based on a family's specific values. So it will reflect what you want it to, not who knows what is in the algorithm or the large language model outside of that.
Well, I know people are, hearing this thinking, gosh, I think I hear what she's saying. This is totally new frontier. And I know that this is worth a whole nother podcast, but the world we're in, we all know, of just doing a Google search and the social media thing. It's changing so fast. So what I love that you guys are working on is this idea of I think of it as like a walled garden. Like, could we put a walled garden, a big fat wall around our family? And then inside of that, what are the things that we do want to have better access to and better reference, be able to reference through technology that would help our family out. So it's really all about the whole core of our conversation, re-entrenching the first institution to be even tighter and better together and using technology appropriately. So it's an ambitious task, but I love that you were saying there is a way to do this versus just...
I think one of our challenges just starting is, I think in general, Christians are kind of late to the party when it comes to new technology and being innovative, which is ridiculous because if we have the Spirit of the living God working and breathing within us, we should be the ones who are the most innovative and the most on the cutting edge and kind of using our God-given gifts and resources to advance the kingdom of God. And so one of the things that is so exciting about this project is there really isn't, it's not like, we have YouTube and this is GodTube, but no, like
right.
Family Digital Foundation, we have an amazing tech team that's kind of leading the charge in this space.
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting to see what they're able to do and just the innovation and the way that this can really strengthen families.
Wow. I love this. Again, it almost feels like they shouldn't fit together, like the family and bleeding edge technology, but these are very much done right. To your point, we ought to be leading the way on how do we redeem technology and redeem family. I mean, these things are not opposites of each other. So there's a lot there. And again, let's definitely have another conversation when we can, Laura, because every one of these articles ought to be a full interview. They're really well done, and I can't encourage people enough. We'll put the link in the show notes, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for the great work you guys are doing with Family Digital Foundation. It's significant and important work.
Well, thank you. This has been great.
All right. We'll have you on again. Thanks, Laura.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of BaseCamp Live. Be sure to check out our website, basecamplive.com, for more than 8 years of timeless episodes that you'll find helpful and encouraging, as well as the helpful resources offered on our partners page. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our partners like the Herzog Foundation. See you back next week.